Good evening. Thank you for coming and welcome to this space. I'm really glad to be here with you this evening. So hello. I am Emma Bush, and tonight I'm going to share with you 4 short stories, and they are part of a wider research project that is titled Memoir, Memory and the Intimate Encounter. And for this project, I've been making material memoirs with my mother, Kathleen Bush, who is 83, and my mother-in-law, Gail Mary Gordon, who is 78. And the primary locations in which these memoir-making days, I call them memory days, have taken place are Totnes, southwest Devon, England, and Llandyssil, Carmarthenshire, West Wales. But the memories shared are cast out over a far wider country, including Birmingham, Evesham, the Welsh Mountain Zoo, Rainworth, Mansfield, Nottingham, Hillingdon, Ickenham, and Torbay. So the readings I share tonight contain direct extracts from these memory days with my mother's, and they also contain storying and fictioning. And as I say, they're part of a larger body of work. So the writing is still happening. The writing is still open to flux, shift, and change. And I'm currently writing the next parts. So I'm really curious to hear your feedback, and hopefully we'll have a moment at the end to exchange some reflections and comments. And also I'll give you my contact details in case there isn't enough time. So for now, let's begin with some memory places. And we'll show you these in a sequence of images. And during this sequence of memory places, I want to invite you to notice your breathing and try to see the duration of each image as an opportunity to simply arrive, relax, and rest into the chair that you're sitting in, the table that you're leaning on, and the place where your feet are making contact with the ground. However that may be for you, how your body is making contact and being supported. And just see each image as a chance to inhale and exhale and arrive. So let's begin now with some slides. Floor plans. Story 1. It happened almost by chance, with each part responding to the next, a rhythm of repairs and maintenance, hard, repetitive work, backbreaking. It happened around the edges of everything else that life keeps on bringing in, and how these events, these interruptions, displace, take space, and affect all the other objects around them. Even a child, even the phone ringing, even an injured bird, even a dog barking, even a memory, even the rain. The shape of this garden has changed over 50 years. All its borders, edges, trees, lines have become caresses, cares, failures. Its shape is gone now. We look about us, casting our eyes for one simple thing to rest our focus on, to trace a line through this last half century. I realize it is her and her body. She holds a cat's eye to her heart. I hold a horse's eye to mine. We stand together looking out to the north, the south, the east, the west, turning our gaze slowly inside and out, seeing this garden anew. I can say that I have been here before. I can say, do you see the walls shifting? She says, when we entered this building, there was an opening here. It led directly out onto the back field. We climbed the stairs to the room with many views. I felt with absolute certainty that all this movement would be good for my joints, knowing, not knowing. There is a wooden post in the middle of the lounge, made of cedar wood. It could have been a telegraph pole. He carried it here on his back across the fields. It has been repolished every year. Bodies brushing past have smoothed, softened, and marked its surface. It remains full of knots and holes that you can put your fingers into. Everything rotates around this pillar, outward, inward. Imagine an architectural model made to include atmosphere. Imagine a drawing or an animation that traces the disappearances and removals of this building, this place, this home. It shifts in and out, reflecting actual changes and desired expansion. It shifts in and out to reflect loss and stuck places. The fluidity of its movements and their sway would be like a dance, minimal and smooth, with walls gliding in and out, floating as if to the motions of a conductor. And yet, this would not reflect the struggle, tears, arguments, dust, crumbling, effort, pain included in the labour of shifting this place about for so many years. There is a room where we once stayed. I remember it as a blue and cool room. A secret place opened up. It was damp and incredibly calm. There was seawater running down the walls. It appeared and disappeared again just as quickly, back into disrepair or storage space or ruin. I think it was a conjuring act. This is a house that has secret passages leading from one room to another, where, if you tread wrongly, your foot might go through the floorboards, your body might fall through the floor plans. If after all these years, these changing spaces hold no resonance for you or of you, I would be very surprised. This dripping stone, this aching spine, these teeth being lost, these knees crying out for a rest, these fingers that still long for freedom, for touch, for exploring something that is beginning, a person with corners of intimacy. Every choice made in response to the next, putting it away, putting it in again, taking it away again, putting it away, taking it in, taking it away again. Stone, gravel, soil, grit, plants, seeds, time, animals, space. How to take the walls out and begin again. How to take the trees down that have grown up all around the house and obscured the view. What connects me to the beginning, to the roots of this house, this place, is repetition, is walkways, is worn surfaces, is that first day we came here in the morning, and when by the evening we knew this was it. These bricks, made of granite, this mortar, these foundations, no running water, no TV, no phone, these trees and skies, these gateposts and landings, these birds and songs, these gateposts and landings, these animals and tracks. "13 years passed before we installed a phone line. When we leave, how is it possible to let go of all these years in this place with these people, these trees and skies, these views and bird songs, these flowers and weeds, these gateposts and landings, these animals and tracks? What is this place made of, and what did we add?" Windows, eyelashes, butterflies, paint, bones, burial, compost, roof tiles, doorways, beds, wheat, worry, thought, goats, cats, pencil shavings, coal, chickens, dreams, hair, cars, burial, bones, skin cells, protection, shelter. A caravan covered in nettles and ferns coming up through the rusted floor, entangled with disintegrating net curtains. We made the land anew. We planted, dug and borrowed. We built an earthship underground, and he lived there all summer long. I think of the floor plans. I see myself drawing with charcoal, etching and rubbing up into every corner of this place, filling it in from the interior, skittering, flaking, dusting off the broken shards of chalk, charcoal, lead, stone, filling in orifices, spreading out, fiddling in, creeping in, around, touching the bones of this shell that has creaked, expanded and sucked and sheltered all these years. I'd like to take the roof off, even though it has just finally been repaired within the stretch of our delicate means. This body, your body, our body, stretching out like a blanket over the land, touching. So much misunderstanding and resentment. The farmers surround at the hedges. The fox hunters come charging in on horseback, the dogs spilling in the bathroom window. An old woman now, I stand with my stick, swearing, cursing, hissing, spitting. They will bleach the land beyond parchment. There will be no bees, birds, butterflies in this God-forsaken hole. If I could reverse the clock and turn back time, I would start from a different position. In time, we repair. Imagine a here with clearer views, quieter, clearer lines. We repair the world. We repair ourselves. We repair within the realm of our delicate means. We repair with whatever is available to us at any given moment in time. Time means repair lines, etching first times. Wasn't it true that I came here to recover? We take almost all the decisive steps in our lives as a result of slight inner adjustments of which we are barely conscious. Story 2. Sound cue, rumbling car engine, a gold cortina. Do you have the floor plans of the original building? No, but I have the deeds and there is a map of the site in there. I think it happened almost by chance, with each step leading to the next. A phone call, a comment made by a relative who had a friend on the council, a notice board, a meeting. We were skirting around the edges of everything that life brings, keeps on bringing. Sometimes these events interrupt and affect all the other things around them. We take almost all the decisive steps in our lives as a result of slight inner adjustments of which we are barely conscious. We cannot capture lives in a few hours or days. It can only be fragments of information fallen on almost by chance. I asked her to try to draw the floor plans of the houses she lived in as a child. It was difficult for her to remember. She is 83. And it was the first time she had ever consciously revisited these rooms. The first time she had drawn them on a piece of paper and remembered where the window was and what it looked out onto and where the furniture was placed in each room. Often when she talks, you can see she is searching for a word, an idea or something. And it seems like quite a physical act, traveling in the mind, hands mapping out, unfolding in the physical space where we are now. Another space, another terrain. I see her in the act of remembering things, spoken out in a voice half here, half elsewhere, remembering, seeing what it speaks out, etches out. Sometimes there is a longing to connect physically with childhood, with parts of self housed in memory, forming their own places with windows, curtains, carpets, music, the nature of childhood memories and the feeling worlds they encompass. Afterwards, I visited property websites on the internet and searched for addresses of houses she had lived in. I was able to take a tour of the insides of houses and gardens I had never set foot in, seeing the shape of the rooms, the doors and the walls that she had inhabited, had touched as a child, slept in and looked out of, all in a former life when she did not know me or all that lay before her. Childhood looking is a form of gazing into a crystal ball and seeing yourself before you knew what you would become. Later, I went back again, looking at the history of our first family home together. I went on the internet using Rightmove and Street View, and from my bedroom, I was able to take a walk around the place, a world so real and yet so far away. Shocking because I realized that these cherished memories from another land and time are amongst my most treasured possessions. Those haunted, dreamlike visions suddenly manifest themselves right before my eyes. My precious corners, nooks and crannies, available to be seen, and to some astonishing degree, unchanged. Here is the wall on which I learnt to fly. Here is the curb from which I fell into the road on my way home from the garages, and where a piece of gravel cut deeply into and embedded itself in my knee. Here is the front window looking out onto the pear tree, with its white sill for sitting in, and its reinforced glass in the half at the bottom, a blurred, black, gridded mesh pattern, still surprisingly in place after almost 40 years. Here are the garages with piles of rubbish gathering down the sides and the edge places where we used to hide and explore, pushing out past the boundaries of what is seen, known, allowed, finding treasure amongst the dank detritus of suburban life. Here is the wall where I learnt to fly and returned in my night dreams to practice again and again that step off the wall into a kind of faultless oblivion of levitation, a known walking on air. The house we were born in is physically inscribed in us. The feel of the tiniest latch has remained in our hands. I have dreams of discovering that we still own this house, this first childhood home. It is not in the past. It still belongs to us. But surely this is not about me. Let me return to your floor plans. Sound cue. A mirror falls from the wall and shatters. There was a woman standing on a corner, etching with her fingertips into the air, another time and place. We pulled up outside, my sister driving, and we saw how this place, your place, has become a Chinese takeaway. When you lived here in the 1940s, it was a fish and chip shop run by your parents, Dorothy and Thomas. So strange, really, to think that all your brothers and sisters have gone now. Sound cue. A boy shouts out in the street. Wait for me! I'm sorry! You gave me 2 small red plastic binocular lenses with yellow frames to peer into and a small keychain of tiny silver balls attached, purchased during a rare trip to Blackpool, where your grandmother had a dark, foreboding Victorian guest house. These small ocular miracles house the younger faces of your mother and father, Dorothy and Thomas. They are unlike any photo of them I have ever seen. Their colour and integrity is protected over years by lack of exposure to light. They have not lost their intensity. They have gained an unexpected moment of reveal. Housed in these souvenir telescopes which the eye peers into, ready to discover its hidden attributes, to reveal something hidden or previously inaccessible. Precious cargo from a seafront day out. Sound cue. It begins to snow. She says, "Do you remember the windowsill at her house?" I say yes. She filled it with soft white snow, model houses, trees, lanterns, figures, to make a Christmas scene with lights. All the decks and boxes of chocolates and Christmas #1s on the record player, filling her front room. The glass-fronted dresser was packed with ornaments, crystal glasses and alcoholic drinks. Our own glasses, as children with our names engraved, in which we were allowed to mix cocktails, shandy, snowball, sherry. That short pathway along past the hedgerows with dens and the small green of St. Peter's Drive, with a slope for bike riding between our house and yours, roller skates, frisbee, bikes. Wasn't it true that I came here to recover? We repair the world and ourselves within the realms of our means at any moment in time. Time means lines, repair, etching, first times. Turf. Story 3. During this time of virus, we are more aware than ever before of the chain of transmission, the pathway or transit of small things, particles blown on air, soil or seed carried on shoes, across continents, toxins in the rainwater, a sneeze, a whisper, a memory carried across bridges, an imprint sitting in the synthetic train seat of another passenger. Now you are seated in the garden looking out, hands resting down to the sides in the long grass, reaching out to touch a blade as it grazes your skin. So much here is about the hands, about touch, about handheld discoveries, making, holding, losses and accidents, an unpredictable riding by on horseback in the rain. A ring, a coin, a brooch, a pin is dropped, lost, and stays there for maybe 300 years before someone discovers it. Uncovering, digging. If the human body performs like a metal detector, it could feel a slight spring of apprehension, a tingling or a response, just before the machine indicates, bleeps, that it is time to dig. You breathe in a smell that takes you to another place, a place that is more wide open, where there is more air. You feel a tingling sense that maybe you have been or will be there in that place, on that turf. Your walkways, bridle paths and footfalls, your digging, your bones to be buried here one day. And sometimes, yes, the conversation turns to burial or cremation and what will happen after you are gone. And we talk about your neighbour, a farmer who lived in the field next to yours, and how he was buried standing up and facing southwest, standing in his favourite orientation at his favourite lookout point. Now we are in the kitchen. A bell rings. Its sound cuts through the air and is felt as vibrations in our bodies, in the wood of the table, in the flame of the candle. We cleared a space to mark this 1 hour together. We hold a 1-minute silence in order to first arrive. I say, do you remember anything about the feel of the day? I mean, the breeze on the skin or the smell of the tunnel or the horse. Well, those become so deeply embedded that they become part of the next time it happens, really. And then the next time it happens, so you're always plunging back into that space, aren't you? Even if you're not conscious of it, you know? Each time you get on a horse? No. Each time you get that scent, the same scent, whatever. If it was a meaningful day, and it could have been a horse, or it could have been hawthorn, and it could have been cut grass, mown grass, because I think the field that we were in would have been mown. It could have been honeysuckle, it could have been dog roses, it could have been leather, saddle soap, it could have been horses. All those things flood you back to that place the next time you experience them. Sometimes you choose to remember, sometimes you try. Sometimes you're just going about your day and you don't really know where it comes from, but something has triggered it. Often we don't sense the line, the connections, the chain of transmission that causes us to come back to a particular time. Funnily enough, I've had one while you were here. I can't trace it back at all. A few days ago, after the rain, and it wasn't just a little bit of rain, it was steady. It went into the ground and then the sun was out, and it was a patch I walked through down on the land, and it was a scent, not a flowery scent, an earthy scent I haven't smelt for, a good long while. And I was plunged back somewhere I haven't managed to think where that would be. I just know I haven't smelt it for a long time. I don't have a good sense of smell now that I'm old. But it was lovely, actually, just intriguing. There is one patch on our land, always the same place, right at the edge, where you can just get, if you are lucky, a hint that you are somewhere else, that you might actually be on a moor with heather and water and that sort of peaty, earthy smell. But it's only one place, and it's a corner. Perhaps a different composition of soil, or perhaps where the water is coming in, where it is. When you get very old, if things come into your consciousness, you want to trace them back to the source. Some memories never rub away, they remain with us like a touchstone, enveloped over years. Sound travels faster underwater. Why shouldn't time? Time travels at different speeds in different locations, underground, underwater, in the valley or at the top of a mountain. Birdsong travels faster through air on a cold, crisp morning. In the cold, crisp dawn air, the chorus reaches 10 times further. So you got to this place, and can you remember the first time you saw Gypsy? Yes, even though I was being thrown off another horse 5 times. 5 times I fell off, and 5 times I got back on. Very embarrassed by it all I was, and seeing stars, and bruised. All the other ponies were in the background and they were just galloping backwards and forwards. You wouldn't have been able to catch them at that stage, I don't think. He said, that's the one. And she was a strawberry roan, and she looked beautiful, really beautiful. So a split second, really, to fall in love with something. Yeah, or to desire something, I suppose. It's all gone. It's all gone, Emma. It's not there anymore. All the special spots have grown, gone over, become derelict. It's become something I don't want it to be. While I was in the kitchen telling you about my first horse, Gypsy, and how we happened on her almost by chance, he was upstairs working with a bunch of old found negatives we had never yet seen. And using a process involving a scanner and placing tracing paper behind or above the negative, he is able to reveal, to enlarge, to print out the images. And he brings them down at the end of our memory day and gives us a picture of Gypsy on the day she gave birth to her foal. And myself standing with Gypsy in the street where we lived in Birmingham, and the curve of her belly echoing the bay window of the rented 1930s semi-detached house where we lived, where years before I spent hours reading books alone in my bedroom, books that took me to green, open, rural spaces, surrounded by trees, animals, horses, dogs. And my favourite thing to draw was a charcoal sketch of a horse inside the front cover of a yellow hardback book, and drawing those lines again and again till I knew the contours, the shapes, the motions by heart. And then riding in the streets of Birmingham on a horse and bringing her here to where she died 30 years later. And that day, sitting by the side of the road with my family having a picnic, he came by and he put me on the back of a big horse, and it just rode off, just kept going. It knew where it was going. Into a green lane, a tunnel, a track, I'll never forget, with brambles and rose hips and butterflies, and a partridge with chicks under. And riding in the way you can sometimes when you feel that your mind and the horses are one, and you are finding a path together. Story 4. You were upstairs looking out from inside over our back garden. Not long ago, half of this garden was turned over to veg. He wanted to move out to the countryside and have a bunker stocked with supplies in readiness for an ending of some sort. Grass tiles and lawn in the 1970s. The Flymo lawnmower with green and orange plastic and its trailing red cord tightly controlled with a strong glare of danger and annoyance. The smell of cut grass, your small determined body pushing ahead with each neat line, made to make things tidy, even, clear around the edges. The water hose arching above a pack of children. You remember the time we children ran inside through the back door and laid a trail of muddy footprints across the carpet. Infuriated, you waited till it dried and then hoovered it away. You stand there inside looking out. There is the pampas grass swaying in the wind, the sun loungers in readiness for bikinis and martinis, silk-cut cigarettes shared over the fence whilst the children are at school. a white box with a deep purple square, the back door, the Catherine wheels nailed to the fence post, that jack-in-the-box that backfired and chased you down the garden towards the back door, hitting and burning your hand. The slope around the corner on which we learnt to roller skate and to ride a bicycle, a red bike. During this time, you were still younger than I am now. There we are, sitting together on the sofa, watching TV, Dynasty, Dallas, after he was gone, when we were allowed to watch such things. The reinforced glass and the way the window opened, the corner to the end of the staircase where once he had his large wooden speakers and expensive stereo that we were not allowed to touch. The brown carpet with floral patterning, our fancy dress box and toys brought home from Spanish holidays, the windowsill and the pear tree outside, our black cat sitting in its branches, looking back in with her green eyes, knowing. A glass table and chairs, cold to the touch. The shadows of trees flickering on the evening bedroom wall as I tried to fall to sleep. Overheard arguments and stories. Your father came to visit you on the third night after he died. The bushes outside, a thicket of adventure with berries red and hard, not to be touched, never eaten. The flying ants treated with a kettle of boiling water. Coming home one evening in December to an igloo built in the front garden. Do you remember? I say yes, it was my 8th birthday. It had a candle inside. So much here is about the hands, making soft snow compacted into hard blocks, holdings, losses, accidents, recoveries, the unpredictable sailing by in a gold cortina and leaving something on the roof of the car only to discover on arrival that it is still there. Or it could have been that it fell off into the gutter on a rainy day, perhaps to be discovered some 40 years later. You say, my body often feels a slight spring of apprehension just before I find something that I thought I had lost. You breathe in a smell that takes you to another place, waiting for the turf to arrive, and when it came, it transformed the space. A brand new Barrett home, so readily, a flat brown mud wasteland to a garden, ready for new beginnings and things to be planted. Thick turf squares, deep, and ready to lay down like carpet tiles, neat and seamless, placed side by side. After some years, an unrecognizable figure entered the garden at nightfall. I watched from my childhood bedroom window as they lifted a corner of this turf, tore it away from the ground, and held it up to the sky, roots dangling, and then lowered it to their nostrils, breathing briefly in the scent of earth, grass, roots, before replacing it, tucking it back into place, and disappearing. You are smelling that turf in the present, and it is allowing you to connect with a part of yourself. You don't exactly know which part, and it gives a connection with the land that you are standing on, the soil that you stand on, noticing it in that moment that there is something being exchanged, even if it's only for a split second. Not knowing can be a restful experience. Your childhood home had a gateway to an alley that ran down the back and led into the woods and to the lake, where you were not allowed to go. One day you ventured into the trees and beyond and stood at the edge of the lake with your younger sister. When the gamekeeper fired his gun in the air, you ran all the way home. Running out of the woods, you were momentarily lost and you found your way back out. When we walk, our bodies notice, send out signals and receive messages, and host connections. Now, we are back in the kitchen. A bell rings, its sound cuts through the air and is felt as vibrations in your body, in the wood of the table, in the flame of the candle. We had to clear a space to get this 1 hour together, and now we are here. We hold a 1-minute silence in order to first arrive. When we arrived, we climbed the stairs that led to the room with many views. It feels like a watchtower, placed here in a suburban garden, with neat borders, edges, and care. Here is where ornaments come alive and use their own language, pace, rhythm, and zones of indeterminacy. It was snowing, and you told me again how we carelessly left our roller skates of red and silver, blue and gold suede, piled at the bottom of the stairs with plastic wheels sticking out. In your busy, determined state, dusting and hoovering around the house, you went flying over them and sprained your ankle badly. Painful. You couldn't get to your cleaning job at the pub. It snowed more deeply, and the next morning you went out into the back garden and you found our black rabbit dead, frozen stiff in his hutch. His hutch that would have been moved into the garage to escape the cold, but now it had been left too late. Our Jack Russell, jumping through the air to catch a ball. It misses, and the ball hits an ornament standing on top of the mahogany dresser, toppling this ornament and causing a breakage and a brief silence. This first piece of ladro, a treasure brought back from a Spanish holiday, is of a young girl holding behind her back a bunch of flowers. Her face is slightly raised, waiting to be seen, poised. Now you take the superglue and you carefully stick this porcelain bunch of flowers back in her hands. Holding, first times, mending, repair. Wasn't it true that I came here to recover? We repair the world and ourselves within the realms of our means at any moment in time. Sound cue. It stops snowing. Thank you for listening, and thank you for the voices of Gaston Bachelard and W.G. Seybold, who appeared briefly in these readings. And now for the final story, we'll see some moving image in a short video, and you will need to press go, the go button, when it appears on your screen. And if for any reason the film doesn't work for you when you press go, I believe that the link will be in the chat.
Should be broadcasting. It's not.
I think it's just run out. No, there it is. Hello, Emma.
Hello, Richard.
Hi. It's. I think I know you were hoping that you might get some Q&A. There are a few comments that come in on the chat,
Okay.
but I think you move people into a very transported space in your performance. I first probably saw you perform this way more than 20 years ago, which is scary to say, but it's true, I think. And I was transported then, and I'm transported now. I think what you've done is to bring us into a space where we're never quite sure who's speaking. We're never quite sure what voice is there. We're never quite sure when we are in time, and it's a wonderful shift it's a wonderful sort of slightly displaced place, and we never we are engaging with these people with your stories, but it's very hard to then kind of pull yourself away and try to respond to that. So I think what we will do is we'll ask people to respond. I know we're hoping to get people to kind of write some thoughts, and we will definitely invite people to do that. But I think now it feels like it's too soon to move out of that space. I think the video at the end is quite an interesting place of being not quite sure where we are anymore. So I think that's something that people might have some feelings about. I wondered how this is relatively new work, I think, isn't it? So
it's work, yeah. I mean, it's new and old, depending on what would be classed as old, of course. It's still in progress. It's still being made. It's still shifting. The next thing I'm doing actually is writing more closely about the videos and how they are in a different register, almost a different key to the rest of the stories, where places aren't named, and even the voices of my mothers aren't specifically named. So like you said, you never quite know who's speaking when. And then in the videos, it's very different because you see their places where they're currently living and the soil on which they currently stand, or the concrete. And you see their bodies as well and their gestures. And that's important to me, the role of the non-verbal movement and the kind of stories that can tell when it's allowed to speak for itself. So that I'm going to be writing about that over the next month, the role of repetition and the non-verbal and gesture, and how those films do or don't work, and what kind of questions they bring up for people in relation to the stories and the layering of the stories and the film.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest shifts for me too is yes, it's different in register, absolutely, completely different in terms of its kind of concreteness. But I think one of the striking things about your words and the way that you shape your words and you deliver your words is the rhythm. And you use rhythm quite a lot. Of course, you use rhythm with those gestures and with the noise devices that you can have. And of course, we are completely shifted away from that in the video space as well. So it's at the moment, it's quite jarring. Actually, it's quite it's quite a kind of disorienting shift, I think, when that happens. So it will be very interesting to see where you go from there, and where you go with that, and whether you try to kind of move the two worlds closer together, or whether you are happy with them being really very separate.
Yeah, I agree. I'm looking forward to experimenting more with the placement of the videos in relation to the texts. And also, I have a very big host of images. So I imagine there'll be different iterations of this at different times. And I agree that the rhythm of the stories is, in a way, quite consistent.
Yeah.
Well, partly because it's my voice throughout, and it's kind of modulated and edited in that way to allow for that. But I think that the films have their own rhythm, although of course it's very different. It's a very different kind of rhythm.
I think what's interesting is seeing this in the digital space like this, and the kind of intimacy that you get, not just from you speaking, which could just as easily be on a stage, but the video is much more intimate because it's up there and it's up there in person, as it were, and move that into a physical space and it would become something and entirely different. So it's been interesting to experience your work in the context of this little box. This little
because it becomes very translated, doesn't it, Richard? The sounds, for example, I don't know what people were receiving because their own gadgets will have translated that sound. Some people won't have been able to hear it, some people will.
Yeah.
And in a space, the sounds resonate if we're in the same room together, the sounds resonate really differently.
Well, I'm just going to give you an enormous thank you for tonight. I know you and Kat have put a huge amount of work into it. You've obviously put a huge amount of work into it. It's been really nice to have you and kind of marking this first performance of the evening. And I think what we will do now is give ourselves a couple of minutes breather and then introduce Lisa Schneider to the stage. So thank you everyone, and many thanks.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you for your help, Kat. Good night.
And everybody else, we'll be with you back in a few minutes.